Hey everybody, welcome back to another travel review from Jackson Jet Sitting. I'm Mark Jackson. Today we're flying Qatar Airways to Greece from Seattle, Washington. I booked this flight in business class for under $2,000 round trip. Had to get myself to Seattle, but stayed in town for the night and took the nice public transportation from downtown Seattle to the airport. It takes about 30 to 40 minutes, and checked in here right at check-in time, which was about 3 hours before my flight. This being my first long-haul flight since the pandemic began, I definitely wanted to get to the airport a little early. I did book a classic fare with Qatar Airways, which normally doesn't include lounge access, but because I am an executive platinum with American and was traveling with my American number attached to the reservation, I got into the Alaska lounges, which are pretty nice in Seattle. This flight was operated by a 777-300, which has the famous Q suites in business class. I think the best business class seat in the world. So let's check it out. My buddy was along for the ride this trip. My wife stayed at home and let me go and get airline status for the next year with this trip. So we didn't book the rear-facing double beds, which are super famous for Qatar. We did have the rear-facing single seats, which I think are some of the best seats, period, in the sky, first class or business class. Super private, and was really excited to have over 14 hours in them on this trip each way. So of course the seat is lie flat. There's also a 22-inch television screen there, plenty of controls as well, with a remote control, plugs for all of your devices, massage feature for the chair even. And this not being an American airline, we did receive a pre-departure beverage of fine French champagne. Here's a look at the menu for the trip. I know I always like to see what the menus were like on these trip reports, so here you go. You can freeze frame it, take a look. So the funny thing with the wine on board Qatar is we flew 4 flights on Qatar this trip, and the wine kept switching. I would think that they would have one constant champagne, but throughout the trip I saw that change. But definitely focused a lot on the Bordeaux's on board, as well as the Graham's Tawny Port, some of my favorite wines, period. So this being the pandemic, you do get a nice little health kit in addition to your traditional amenity kit. The amenity kit itself, I'll show a little later, doesn't have a lot of what you would typically find in an amenity kit, because that's found in the bathroom, like toothbrushes and toothpaste. But some hydrating mist there, some nice colognes, nice bathrooms, and easy to change into your pajamas, which everyone receives on board in business class on Qatar, which is somewhat unique. So these seats are rear facing, so you do get a nice little view of the engine from my seat, which was more forward in the cabin. So definitely keep that in mind. I don't get motion sick, so I don't really mind facing backwards, and it actually helps me sleep a little bit better because the angle of attack of the plane when it's at cruising altitude is slightly tilted upward, so the blood doesn't rush to your head when you're trying to sleep in that lie-flat chair. So the tray table comes out from underneath the television. I'm 6 feet tall, and there was plenty of room for my legs in recline or in the fully lie flat position. Here's the amenity kit itself. It's from Brix, which is an Italian company. So a lot of Italian items in there. Most of the lip balms and the facial mists were made by a company that actually makes olive oils. So plenty of things here for your long flight. Eye masks, socks. Definitely helpful to have on board. Some facial moisturizer. So always nice to have. So we are about an hour into the flight, and I switch over to the red wine. And some mixed nuts were served before my meal as well. The flight attendants, again, super attentive. When you see that door right there, they immediately closed it as soon as it was safe after 10,000 feet. So basically you have your own little world here, and you start out with some appetizers. I chose the Arabic meze, which had a lot of olives and hummus, and some delicious breads. We're flying over Canada and lots of fires. This was August 2021, so plenty of wildfires during the summer here, and pretty fun viewing outside the window as I continued my meal. I've flown Qatar Airways before, and the only real difference I noticed about the food service was that everything kind of came covered. So I made things look pretty for the shot, but I chose the chicken and rice dish, which was delicious. And then a nice little dessert there. So overall, fantastic food. Always thrilled with Qatar's catering. So after a long meal, it was time to take a nap. There's turn down service on board, so they make the bed for you. Very comfortable. I slept a few hours on board, which I usually have trouble with planes. So definitely comfortable there, no complaints. So here's what the pre-arrival meal looked like. I slept through any mid-flight snack options. A little dark because they hadn't turned the cabin lights on yet, but here's what I had before arriving in Doha. And standard on every flight, 2 little Godiva chocolates to depart with. So with 2 14-hour layovers each way on this trip, my original plan was to go into Doha, if ever so briefly. Doha had opened up to tourists after we booked the flight, so it wasn't necessary to spend the entire time in the airport. I screwed up my PCR test on the way there, so it was 14 hours in the Mourjan Business Class lounge, which, even for how fantastic the lounge is, was a lot of time. If you've never been in this lounge, there's plenty of amazing fountains and artwork inside. It's incredibly quiet, except for really the sleeping room, which you'll see later. But first thing I did after a long flight, went and took a shower. The shower suites here are, have everything that you need, shower and a nice toilet and all the toiletries that you need. So these can get backed up depending on when you arrive, and rush hour seems to be in the middle of the night here, so definitely something to keep in mind. But here's a look at the shower suites in the Mourjan. So when I have plenty of time to kill and the food is free, I eat. So I checked out upstairs in the Mourjan lounge, which has a restaurant. There was a buffet option as well as a a la carte menu, so I checked out both. I got the steak, which was fantastically cooked. That's from the a la carte menu, but they also had some on the buffet. And plenty of iced coffees tonight to try and stay up. There is a transit hotel called the Oryx Hotel, which is inside the secure area of the airport. Book that well in advance because they don't have too many rooms, and they were all booked up by the time that I wanted a bed for the night. But there's also a sushi bar in this restaurant, which is pretty cool. And if the restaurant itself is busy, you can go back downstairs and go across the entire lounge to their other restaurant, which has this little sandwich bar, has some more sushi options, as well as another a la carte menu, and the items are different on there. So definitely check that out. Here's a look at some of the artwork that's in the lounge as you enter. I will say that if you're hanging out a long time in this lounge, the chairs themselves are not that comfortable. So just keep that in mind if you have a long layover like I did. So about 2 or 3 hours in, after charging some of my devices, I got a little bored, so I decided to explore the airport a little bit. The airport itself is massive. It takes 15-20 minutes to walk to one end of one wing. Plenty of duty-free shops. There's a Harrods. But I found the day spa of the Oryx Hotel, and so to burn an hour and a half plus an hour in the gym for $110, I got a massage, and that was pretty great. It's located on the top floor of the terminal, and you can see out in the terminal there. Here's their gym. It's fantastic. There's one other person there with me. You don't have to wear a mask when you're exercising, so keep that in mind. There's also a squash court and a golf simulator and a lap pool. So pretty awesome stuff. On this leg of the journey, the Al Safwa Lounge was still closed. It opened up on our way back. I'll show you a shot of that later in the video. It's the first class lounge, and One World Emirates do not get access. You have to be flying Qatar first class, so keep that in mind. But they do have sleeping rooms in there, so it could save you a little bit of money if they're offering paid access, which they have in the past. So wanting to sample everything, I went to the other restaurant, tried one of the sandwiches, and tried a nice Greek salad. Again, food fantastic, service was great. Even had a little bit of wine. And so then I was like, let's try and get a sleeping quarters. And I waited about an hour for that, but one opened up. Not the most comfortable. There's no real bed. Luckily, I got the whole suite to myself, so I was able to put 2 ottomans up and it was able to actually fit on one of those chairs. But not really great quality sleep. You hear everything that happens in there. Some people aren't very quiet or they're snoring, but it's better than trying to sleep in one of the public chairs, which you can see look really nice, but aren't really great for hanging out for hours at a time. So finally, the morning came. It was time to hop on board a Dreamliner to Greece. So these seats, a little bit more open, still lie flat, still really nice seats, reverse herringbone. And so they give you a smaller amenity kit for this 4-hour flight. I definitely recommend taking one during the day because you'll see some of the views outside the window. Flying into Athens were fantastic. The islands that we were going to on the trip. So despite being an inferior product compared to the Q Suites, fantastic storage, lots of options for charging your devices. So one meal on this flight, you can freeze frame and take a look. You had a nice rosé option on this flight compared to the long haul flight, which I found interesting. It was morning, so I was still a little tired from my restless night, so didn't really partake in any alcohol on this leg of the journey. I chose the strawberry pancakes for my meal option. You can see some of the wrapping there for the bread. I would say that most of the bread was served cold. Normally it was served warm pre-pandemic, so minor thing. They're trying their best and still excellent. So now we're back on our leg from Athens to Doha, and our aircraft was switched out from a Dreamliner to an A350. So a slightly different seat, but some fantastic wine selections and a completely different experience. I love the rosé on board. So had a couple glasses of those and checked out the seat. It was another early morning departure, so I did lie down a little bit. 4-hour flight. They were avoiding some different airspaces on the trip, so we flew over Turkey and then through Iraq down to Doha. So this flight was serving lunch. Soup was fantastic. And then the Arabic meze was served as well with some nice pitas. We're coming from Greece, so I felt like this one was particularly good. And then the chicken dish with rice, again, knocked it out of the park. And some nice little baklava-ish bites for dessert, which were just amazing. Here's a look at the Al Safwa Lounge. It was open. Unfortunately, wasn't able to get in. But we're had a quick layover before heading straight back to the United States on another 14-hour flight on Qatar Airways. So I did get some shots of these menus. This flight, pretty much the same as the flight over, so I didn't get too many more new shots for you here, but did take some pictures of the food. So take a look at the wine menus and the food. Wouldn't hesitate to fly Qatar Airways again, even with the extra flights over. Qatar is actually on the same time zone as Athens, so it makes traveling a little bit easier. You start adjusting to the time zone a little bit as you arrive in Doha, so definitely worth checking out. Appreciate you watching. Please subscribe if you like these types of videos. I do a lot of resort videos as well, and see you next time.